Hello students. Last time we began with the reading of the chapter The Rattrap. Today we are going to continue with it. So let's read it further. The tramp did not say anything either. He had not come there to talk but only to warm himself and sleep. In those days the Ramshaw iron mill was owned by a very prominent means important, iron master whose greatest ambition was to ship out good iron into the market. He watched both night and day to see that the work was done as well as possible. And at this very moment, he came into Forge on one of his nightly rounds of inspection. So, the peddler, when blacksmith did not say anything in words, even the peddler, he also said nothing because his main aim was to warm himself and sleep. The owner of the Ramshaw iron mill in those days was a very ambitious person whose aim was to sell only the finest iron into the market. Therefore, he used to keep a check on the workers both during the night and the day. The owner was on a night inspection visit when the peddler entered the forge. Naturally, the first thing he saw was the tall ragamuffin who had eased his weight so close to the furnace that steam rose from his wet rags. Ragamuffin means a person in rags. So, unlike the blacksmith, unlike the blacksmith means, as blacksmith he did not pay attention to peddler, but iron master he at once noticed the peddler who was sitting so close to the furnace that steam was coming out of his torn clothes. The iron master did not follow the example of the blacksmith, means he did not ignore him, who had hardly deigned means do something that one considers to be beneath one's dignity. So he thought it to be beneath his dignity to pay attention to peddler. So a blacksmith who had hardly deigned to look at the stranger, but iron master did not behave in the same way. He walked close up to him and looked him over very carefully, and then tore off his slouch hat to get a better view of his face. Slouch hat means hat with wide flexible brim. So iron master, he went near to the peddler and removed the wanderer's hat that was bent to one side so that he could see the man's face clearly. But of course, it is you, Niels Olof, he said. How you do look! The man with the rat traps had never before seen the iron master at Ramshaw and did not even know what his name was. But it occurred to him that if the fine gentleman thought he was an old acquaintance, he might perhaps throw him a couple of kronor. Therefore, he did not want to undeceive him all at once. Acquaintance means associate or known, and undeceive means to tell someone that his belief is mistaken. So here, when iron master looked at peddler, he mistook him as an old acquaintance, Niels Olof. The peddler haven't seen him or known him, this man, but he thought that if this man mistook him as his old companion and gave him some money out of pity, then it would be a good thing. So he didn't let him know that he had mistaken him as Niels Olof. He did not give his introduction to him because he thought that he would be getting some money from him out of pity. Yes, God knows things have gone downhill. Downhill means worst with me, he said. You should not have resigned from the regiment. Regiment is unit in the army, said the iron master. That was the mistake. If only I had still been in the service at that time, it never would have happened. Well, now of course you will come home with me. So peddler, he started a conversation with the iron master by saying that things didn't went well with him. To this, iron master replied that he had made a big mistake by leaving the regiment. He also added that if he would have been working in the regiment when he resigned, he wouldn't have let him do so, and later on he invited him to his home. To go along up to the manor house. Manor house means a large country house, and be received by the owner like an old regimental comrade. Comrade is a fellow soldier that, however, did not please the tramp. Tramp again is word used for the peddler. It means wanderer. No, I couldn't think of it, he said, looking quite alarmed. Alarmed means frightened. He thought of the 30 kroner. To go up to the manor house would be like throwing himself voluntarily into the lion's den. He only wanted a chance to sleep here in the forge and then sneak away as inconspicuously as possible. Sneak away means go away secretly. Inconspicuously means invisible or which is not noticeable. So Rattrap sailor, he did not find it to be a good idea to visit the ironmaster's place. He was frightened with the idea of visiting to the large house of an old soldier, which according to him was not safe. After all, he had the stolen money with him and he didn't want to put himself in danger. His intentions were to sleep in the forge and then go away from there without even being noticed. The ironmaster assumed that he felt embarrassed because of his miserable clothing. So he assumed this thing that maybe the peddler was get feeling embarrassed because the way he was dressed up. Please don't think that I have such a fine home that you cannot show yourself there, he said. Elizabeth is dead, as you may already have heard. So he's talking about his wife who is no more. My boys are abroad, and there is no one at home except my oldest daughter and myself. We were just saying that it was too bad we didn't have any company for Christmas. Now come along with me and help us make the Christmas food disappear a little faster. So Ironmaster, he was aware of his friend's miserable condition, so he tried to make him comfortable by saying that he should feel free to come to his home, as his home was an ordinary one. He told him that his wife was no more and added that he must be aware of this. Then he let him know that both his sons were settled abroad. Only he and his daughter were left at home, and he invited him to celebrate Christmas with his family so that he and his daughter may have some good company at the Christmas feast. But the stranger said no, and no, and again no. And the ironmaster saw that he must give in, means he must leave him, forcing him. It looks as though Captain Wanstall preferred to stay with you tonight's uh, Jernstorm, he said to the master blacksmith and turned on his heel. Turn on his heel means leave. Though the ironmaster he made many attempts to invite him, the peddler didn't accept his invitation. So at last he says to the blacksmith's Jernstorm that he seemed that Captain Wanstall, he is calling peddler Captain Wanstall, wanted to stay with him in the forge. But he laughed to himself as he went away. So Ironmaster, he laughed when he was going away, and the blacksmith knew and understood very well that he had not said his last word. Means blacksmith knew that Ironmaster was hiding something. It was not more than half an hour before they heard the sound of carriage wheels outside the forge, and a new guest came in, but this time it was not the ironmaster. He had sent his daughter, apparently hoping that she would have better powers of persuasion than he himself. So after a gap of half an hour, the ironmaster he sent his daughter, hoping that his daughter may bring his friend home, as he believed that she was a better person. She was better in persuading others. Persuasion means the act of convincing. So she was very good at convincing. So they thinking that ironmaster sent his daughter. She entered, followed by a valet carrying on his arm a big fur coat. She was not at all pretty, but seemed modest and quite shy. In the forge, everything was just as it had been earlier in the evening. The master blacksmith and his apprentice still sat on their bench, and iron and charcoal still glowed in the furnace. So the ironmaster's daughter, she entered the mill with her attendant. Valet means personal attendant, who was carrying a big fur coat. She was a humble girl who was very shy. When she entered, everyone was busy the same way as they had been earlier. The blacksmith, he was still sitting on the bench with his trainees and was working on the iron. The stranger had stretched himself out on the floor and lay with a piece of pig iron under his head and his hat uh, pulled down over his eyes. As soon as the young girl caught sight of him, she went up and lifted his hat. The man was evidently used to sleeping with one eye open, means to have a light sleep. He jumped up abruptly and seemed to be quite frightened. So, when the daughter of Iron Master went up to the peddler and lifted his hat, the peddler, he slept with one eye open, and as soon as he saw her, he got shocked and jumped up. "My name is Edla Williamson," said the young girl. "My father came home and said that you wanted to sleep here in the forge tonight, and then I asked permission to come and bring you home to us. I am so sorry, Captain, that you are having such a hard time." So here the Iron Master's daughter, she introduces herself and says that she is Edla Williamson, and she was very sorry to hear about the hard times that Peddler was facing. She explained to him that she had come to take him home with her father's permission. She looked at him compassionately. Compassionately means showing sympathy for others with her heavy eyes, and then she noticed that the man was afraid. Either he has stolen something, or else he has escaped from jail, she thought, and added quickly, "You may be sure, Captain, that you will be allowed to leave us just as freely as you came. Only please stay with us over Christmas Eve." So Edla, she had sympathy for the peddler, but she also noticed that the reason behind his fear could be that either he had committed robbery or jailbreak, means he has escaped from jail, he has run away from jail. So she said that he was free to leave their house at any time, but she wanted him to stay with the family just for Christmas Eve. She said this in such a friendly manner that the Rattrap peddler must have felt confidence in her. So, the way Edla spoke to peddler in a very nice way, which made him believe her, and it would never have occurred to me that you would bother with me yourself, miss. He said, "I will come at 1." So, Edla, she talked to peddler in a very nice way, which made peddler believe her, and he got ready to go with her. He accepted the fur coat, which the valet handed him with a deep bow, threw it over his rags, and followed the young lady out to the carriage without granting the astonished, surprised blacksmith so much as a glance. But while he was riding up to the manor house, he had evil forebodings. Forebodings means a foretelling or a strong feeling that something unpleasant is going to happen. So the peddler, he wore the fur coat that was offered to him by the valet and started following the lady. He didn't even bother to notice the other people in the room, especially the blacksmith. On the way to the house, the peddler felt that as he had committed a crime, he would be punished for it. So he was having that feeling that something unpleasant is going to happen, because he knew inside that he had committed a robbery, he had committed a crime, and he might get caught. What he says, why the devil did I take that fellow's money? He thought, I am sitting in the trap and will never get out of it. So he started cursing himself that if he had not stolen the money, he would not have got trapped like this. The money was a bait which had led him into a trap. The next day was Christmas Eve, and when the ironmaster came into the dining room for breakfast, he probably thought with satisfaction of his old regimental comrade whom he had run across so unexpectedly. First of all, we must see to it that he gets a little flesh on his bones. Flesh on his bones mean the peddler should eat good food to gain some flesh on his body, because he had become weak due to malnutrition. So he says that uh, Iron Master, he said to his daughter that he should get flesh on his bone, uh, who was himself busy at the table, and then we see that he gets something else to do than to run around the country selling rat trap. So next day was Christmas Eve. Iron Master and his daughter, they were ready at the dining table. Iron Master said to his daughter that they had to do something good for the peddler and should try to find some better job for him. It is queer, queer means strange, that things have gone downhill with him as badly as that, said the daughter. Last night I did not think that there was anything about him to show that he had once been an educated man. So Ironmaster's daughter, she said that it was strange to see that the peddler had been in such hard times, and was doubtful whether the man had been educated. You must have patience, my little girl, said the father. So, hearing this, Ironmaster clarified that she should be patient, and he said that as soon as he gets clean and dressed up, you will see something different. Last night he was naturally embarrassed. The tramp manners will fall away from him with the tramp clothes. So he said to his daughter that it was due to his bad condition, and also added that the man would behave differently after getting clean and dressed up. Just as he said this, the door opened and the stranger entered. Yes, now he was truly clean and well dressed. The valet had bathed him, cut his hair, and shaved him. Moreover, he was dressed in a good looking suit of clothes which belonged to the ironmaster. He wore a white shirt and a starched collar and whole shoes. Starched collar means starch is a stuff that makes your shirt collar look crisp and fresh, and whole shoes means proper fitted shoes. So while both father and daughter, they were discussing about the peddler, he entered the room with the wallet. He was looking clean as he had bathed, and his hair had been cut by the wallet. He was wearing the ironmaster's clothes and shoes, a shirt with a starched collar and shoes which covered the entire feet. So he was well dressed. But although his guest was now so well groomed, means neatly dressed, the ironmaster did not seem pleased. He looked at him with puckered brow. Puckered means wrinkled, and it was easy to understand that when he had seen the strange fellow in the uncertain reflection from the furnace, he might have made a mistake, but that now, when he stood there in the broad daylight, it was impossible to mistake him for an old acquaintance. What does this mean? He thundered. Thundered means with a loud noise he spoke. That what does this mean? The stranger made no attempt to dissimulate. Dissimulate means pretend. He saw at once that the splendor had come to an end, means the luxury, the grandeur, it had come to an end. So Iron Master, he seemed very angry to see his well-groomed guest, as now he could make out his appearance well and realized that he was not his comrade. He understood that he mistook some stranger as his old friend. He screamed at him and asked him to explain. The peddler knew that the Iron Master could make out that he was not his old friend. As he already knew this, he was ready to for the consequences and felt that the luxurious treatment was about to end. Then he says, peddler, that it is not my fault, sir, he said. I never pretended to be anything but a poor trader, and I pleaded and begged to be allowed to stay in the forge. So here, peddler, he tried to explain that he shouldn't be blamed. He said that he was just begging for a stay in the forge, and he never pretended to be anything else but just a poor trader, and he also begged to allow him to stay in the forge, but no harm has been done. At worst, I can put on my rags again and go away. Well, said the Iron Master, hesitating a little, it was not quite honest either. So, when he said that I never pretended to be anything just than a poor trader, and was just begging for a stay in the forge, but also said that he had not harmed anyone and was ready to wear his rags again, to which Iron Master hesitated and said that the peddler had not been quite honest, and so he wanted to call a sheriff. So he says that it was not quite honest either. You must admit that, you must accept that you did not tell truth about yourself, and I should not be surprised if the sheriff would like to have something to say in the matter. So he says that since you were not quite honest, so he wanted to call the sheriff. Sheriff is, you can say, the police in England. The tramp took a step forward and struck the table with his fist. Now I am going to tell you, Mr. Ironmaster, how things are, he said. This whole world is nothing but a big rat trap. All the good things that are offered to you are nothing but cheese rings and bits of pork set out to drag a poor fellow into trouble. So here the rat trap seller, he gets so enraged upon hearing about the sheriff that he struck the table very hard with his fist. He said that this world is a rat trap and all the good things are a bait, just like the rinds of cheese and the small pieces of pork are a bait for the rat which are offered to trap it. So he says that these good things, they are just like nothing but cheese ring and bits of pork set out to drag a poor fellow into trouble. And if the sheriff comes now and locks me up for this, then you, Mr. Ironmaster, must remember that a day may come when you yourself may want to get a big piece of pork, and then you will get caught in the trap. So he says that not only this, he also pointed out to the Ironmaster that he may today be imprisoned by the sheriff, but one day the Ironmaster will also get trapped like this. The Ironmaster, he began to laugh. That was not so badly said, my good fellow. Perhaps we should let the sheriff alone on Christmas Eve, but now get out of here as fast as you can. So Ironmaster, he did not like the peddler's words and decided not to call the sheriff, but he asked the peddler to leave at once. But just as the man was opening the door, the daughter said, I think he ought to stay with us today. I don't want him to go. And with that, she went and closed the door. So the ironmaster's daughter, she stopped the peddler from going away. She wanted to help the poor fellow, and she says that he is going to stay with us today. And she closed the door. What in the world are you doing? Said the father. The daughter stood there quite embarrassed and hardly knew what to answer. That morning she had felt so happy when she thought how homelike and Christmassy. She was going to make things for the poor, hungry wretch. Wretch means miserable person. She could not get away from the idea all at once, and that was why she had interceded. Interceded means intervened or pleaded in favor for the vagabond. So, since morning she had been planning how she would make the peddler's day happy on the occasion of Christmas, and therefore she went against her father's will and stopped him by closing the door. Now let us stop here and we'll continue in the next part. Thank you.